So, welcome again to Gully to Gully. We're going to have a mixed episode. We'll start off by covering the latest updates in cricket the last few days, the world of cricket. There's been lots going on, but not a lot going on either. So, if you really look into the details, but also we're going to discuss something a little different. We've had a couple of episodes on the best test innings from India and Pakistan. We're going to switch it around from a Pakistani perspective and we'll discuss what again in our general memory, not specific performances or whatever, but what we kind of remember as the worst performances, whether it's the worst innings or batting performance. Again, this is not a personal attack or anything on anyone. It's meant to be something that we kind of remember or were frustrated by over the years. And I'm sure you watching will also have something to contribute and share because from a Pakistan point of view, at least in the recent past, there's been lots to choose from. Whether it's batting, bowling, fielding. I mean, for the past 75 years, I'm sure you can pick like 7,000 performances. But what do you think, Moin? That's a good way to frame our discussion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, starting with the more objective stuff, right? Obviously, the worst Pakistani performance is a severely subjective question. And for a team like Pakistan, as you know, lots of highs, but lots and lots of lows, right? And I can think of so many from a fielding standpoint alone. But, so that can be obviously a more light-hearted discussion. But firstly, talking about the objective things at hand, right? I mean, I think let's start with the most impressive series we've had on, which is Australia, England, two high quality sides. You might argue, rank 1 and 3 maybe, or 2 and 3, depending on your view of the world. 2-0 up Australia, then England came back 2-all, and then a bit disappointing to have rain in the
Yeah.
fifth game, which obviously severely benefited Australia because they knew they didn't have to bat the full 50, and that informed their approach. But it's one thing to play a shortened game and be on the advantage side of it, but it's another to score 165 in 20 overs with losing only 2 wickets, right? I mean,
Yeah.
credit where credit's due, so I thought Australia were very good. England unlucky with the rain, definitely,
Yeah.
but you might say Australia were well deserved winners.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, fantastic series. Two high quality teams playing high quality cricket. Nothing more, nothing, nothing less. It was, yeah, great to watch as a neutral. Some fantastic innings, Harry Brooks 100 a couple of games ago after we kind of criticized his captaincy, but not his batting, his
Yeah,
captaincy.
yes, exactly. His batting is terrific.
um,
Yeah.
300 and something runs in 39 overs
Yeah.
in the previous game. England
Yeah.
scored with Liam Livingston scoring 60 something of like 30 balls. Yeah, I mean, fantastic stuff. But not a lot going on apart from that. To be honest, India Bangladesh rained off unless India do a miracle, which they can do. To be honest, most likely going to be a draw,
Yeah.
rain, and all that. I'm not going into all the semantics of how it didn't rain for half the day and the game still didn't kick off, but whatever. um, Sri Lanka doing Sri Lanka, winning at home, pretty comfortable, doing their
Very
thing.
comfortable. Mm.
South Africa losing to Ireland in the second T20. Surprising
So
that
that's a
South
bit,
Africa
I mean, South
given.
Africa have had a string of bad performances, right,
Yeah,
since they won, so got to the final. It reminds me
yeah,
of the downfall of certain other teams,
yeah,
tournament teams that come really good and then in bilaterals just really lose the
yeah,
plot. But I mean, it's unusual for South Africa,
yeah,
right? The one thing that we all thought about South Africa, even during that times that they didn't have the best team, was that they were
yeah,
consistent, right? They
yeah,
You knew they always were going to put on a good show, right? And they were going to give it their all, except in semifinals of world tournaments.
yeah,
But bilaterals was their bread and butter for so long. That's why they were ranked number one in the rankings for across formats. But it's a bit disappointing, and you can't say that it was a very depleted team because it wasn't. Um, I is the batting a bit too thin, right? I mean, with Markram and Miller at 5 and 6, and I'm talking more generally. I appreciate
yeah,
not everybody played in this series, but there's a question mark on, you know, um, whether that 5 and 6, and then you have a tail after that. Right now, I
yeah,
know with Janssen at 7, there is some batting, but whether he's a number 7 or not. So there are questions there. I think there's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Obviously, Makram was injured, I believe. I think,
Yeah.
and he's a solid player, but I was expecting more with the likes of Tristan Stubbs, who I really like the look of in the World Cup, and a few others. I I don't want, it's a. I don't want to start saying that, especially against Afghanistan, is it a case of playing too much T20 cricket?
Yeah.
Are these like effectively T20 batters that are just playing a longer T20 game? Because that's not what one day cricket is. And I think we've proven that. We've seen that again and again. But here in this case, lost to T20 to Ireland. So, clearly
Yeah.
something's not going right. But I wouldn't read too much into it. Just, yeah, just things to think about,
The thing that I would read a little bit into is, we talk about, well, not us, but generally, there's a lot of talk around player welfare and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that series was actually being played in Abu Dhabi. I don't know how they play 20 overs, even if it's 2020, but I don't know how they play for so long in this heat. I mean, kudos to them, but it's tough. It's really humid. It's really hot. Neither of them are native to these conditions, so I don't know how the match is and why they've scheduled
Why
it
they
here at
chose
this
it,
time
why
of
they
the year.
signed up to it, I know. I mean, it's bonkers. I mean,
But
the only thing I can
unless
think
they,
of is UAE is just in the middle, between Ireland
yeah,
and South Africa, whether it was just convenient to have it there rather than one team flying all across.
yeah,
But I don't know.
yeah, it's a strange one. But obviously, and last but not least, the best domestic tournament on the planet with a fantastic final. What a fitting final it
I don't
was when you've taken
understand.
all the best. You're kind of first team, not the best, but your kind of main marquee players have been withdrawn from the tournament, and then you have a fantastic final where one team wins, captained by none other than Mr. Shadab Khan, wins it convincingly.
And to be all out for 120, if somebody told you before the Championship Cup, what is the things that you don't want to see? The worst
Yeah.
possible things in terms of reputation of Pakistan cricket. And this is one of them. A final that results in a ridiculously low total. Because I think we all know that 80% of Pakistan still think that batting is our weakness. And I say that because I actually think everything's our weakness, But if you were to think objectively, I think you'd say batting is still the weaker suit than bowling. And when you see scores like this at 120, you start thinking there is really a dearth of talent. I mean, forget the big players. I mean, even the middle tier. I mean, you cannot withstand. As soon as there's a pressure game, i.e., a final, they collapse. Which is why there's a big gulf between our domestic tournaments and international games. It's
Yeah.
because they can't handle the pressure, and I don't know what the answer is, but it was just really disappointing. Now, the one thing I'd say is even the IPL had a one-sided final, right? If you recall, like even there was a big collapse even there. So it's not completely unique to Pakistan, right? I mean, it does happen in any tournament, whether it's a T20 franchise tournament or an international tournament. It can happen. I mean, Pakistan were all out for 130 in the 99 World Cup final, where we both thought the same thing. So it happens. But I think it's just quite disappointing that nobody, put their hand up, right? And even even the thought of Shadab Khan winning a tournament as captain, and suddenly it's Glenn Mushtaq, who's obviously his father-in-law, saying that yes, Shadab Khan should be in the team. He's captain and he should be the captain of Pakistan and all that. I used to be a big fan of Shadab Khan, right? But I just feel sometimes big wins like this create a false sense of illusion or no, a false sense of security, right, in these players, that they think that actually everything's fine. They just had a few bad days, nothing to work.
Bearing in mind that in a score of 120 all out, Shadab Khan went for 3 overs 20. So
Exactly, but nobody's going to think like that. You see, that's the problem, right? He's the winning captain, and nobody's going to just focus. So they'll think, oh, everything is good, nothing needs to be worked on, and they'll give themselves that false security blanket. Just like Shaheen Afridi has been saying, oh, what is this workload management? Wasim Wakar used to bowl for so many more overs. Because again, you're going back to this nostalgia. Like, Workload management is a big deal now because you
Yeah,
play way more cricket than you did then. But Seaman McCarr did not play T20 or franchise cricket. Like there was no franchise cricket. You didn't have international cricket the same way that you do here. You didn't have three formats even, you know. So I mean, what should instead of saying, you know what? Yes, I'm not in form. Yes, there are things
yeah,
to work on. Yes, I need a bit of a break, right? All the best players in the world have taken breaks when they needed to. Instead, he just keeps going on and evoking nostalgic memories. And look, if you really want to talk about Wasim and Vakar, let's talk about them. Vakar Yunus has had more time down than he has up. Let's face it, okay? If you really want to think about longevity, you might
yeah,
argue that had Vakar Yunus's workload been managed better, maybe he could have had a more successful career, right? His downfall, or I won't say downfall, but his downward trajectory started as early as what, 94, 95. Some people even say earlier than that, again because of injury. So you're
yeah.
going to bring these great iconic fast bowlers who, by the way, are once in a generation players. Like you are not them. Okay, they can do things you can't do. But even if you take the example, look at Vakar.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have had a much more successful career. Wasim Akram is probably the only one who had the level of longevity. And even that, you might argue, was also due to lots of time spent outside the team due to all these allegations that were thrown at him, rightly or wrongly. But there was a lot of time, there were a lot of times, and like prolonged periods, I remember, when he didn't play, right? Either, he was dropped or whatever. It's even in his book, right? So, I mean, facts are facts. He's bowled more overs than anybody else. He's quite stubborn. He apparently really wanted to play the first test, even though it was against everyone's better judgment against Bangladesh. Like, it just points to a level of immaturity. And I actually think it was probably the right call to strip him off the captaincy, right? If this was the reason behind
Yeah.
it all, because I don't think he has the maturity. He can't even own up to his mistakes, let alone lead an international side.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's frustrating to see how, yeah, the whole, you know, the, and again, in the context of the Champions Cup, it just kind of defeats the purpose of the whole tournament.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's going to be like, oh, Shadab Khan winning captain, how can you drop him from the team? Blah blah blah. You know, um, ignoring what the actual performances were on the pitch. I mean, you've had a tournament where Mohammad Hasnain was the man of the tournament, the best bowler, wicket taker.
Mm.
Sajid Khan, I think Sajid Khan, yeah, who was like he was the player of the final. Who's
Who is a tried and tested mediocre player. I mean, there's no
yeah,
and for anyone who
at
knows the
international level, at test level, right? I
international,
mean,
yes, international, and anyone who knows the technicals of cricket will know that the way his action is, he doesn't get side on enough, so he's always going to be limited in the amount of purchase he gets off the wicket through the angle. He's quite front on, which is quite unique, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that does lend itself to not being as big a spinner. You could ignore that if he had a really stellar international career, but he hasn't. He's had, I think, one really good test match against Bangladesh in a spinning paradise in Bangladesh, but other than that, he's been pretty ordinary,
yeah,
you know. And I don't see him being the answer to Pakistan's spinning issues if they suddenly think that,
yeah,
oh, you know what, let's consider him in the shorter form of the game.
yeah. Speaking of pretty ordinary, I think we can nicely segue
What
into
a good segue! What a good segue! All right, so
our
look,
main topic.
let's you know uh, Zahid, you and I just thought about this off the cuff, right? I mean, we've talked about
Yeah,
the greatest test innings, right? We have that series which we will continue, but let's just have a bit of fun, right? I mean, we have seen lots of garbage, right? In fact, very recently. But if we just take a step back, okay, and just think of, since we started watching cricket, what are the two or three most ordinary, most frustrating pieces of, and probably the worst pieces of cricket that we've seen from Pakistan? Let's limit it. What
yeah.
would they be? Zai, do you want to go first with the first
Wow.
pick?
I've got one again. This is maybe recency bias because I can just remember this off the top of my head. I was there in person. Maybe slightly unfair to the player because he's probably been in recent times Pakistan's better performers. Although I do think recently he's got away lightly. Was Fakhar Zaman's 10 of 45, 50 balls against England in a random bilateral series at Lords. Only because I was there in person. This 2021.
I know. It was COVID
This
time. I
was
remember
not
there was a
England.
second
Like this was England C. I literally
Saqib
can't even remember
Mahmood, who you
half the
never saw
players.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
There was Saqib Mahmood and some, I think, was it Simpson, John Simpson, Josh, he was the wicket keeper. Like I couldn't even know. I didn't even know half the team that was playing. And I remember Pakistan was chasing 240 something, and they lost a couple of early wickets. And Fakhar Zaman was batting, and he was like struggling. One of those things where he's not even touching the ball.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
was painful to watch. Yeah, then he got 10 or 40 something. He couldn't, like, it was so bad that he wasn't even getting out. Like he was not even good enough to edge it. I don't know what was going on with him that day, but yeah, I remember that innings and I was like, wow. That's actually the game where, is it like, I think that's Saud Shakil's debut where he got a
Yes, after
50, and
Davis, everybody then
when Babar
forgot
Azam
about
forgot.
this.
Yeah, so that's that game. But I mean, I'm sure it's one of those which gets hidden just because of the random bilateral series, post COVID.
But yeah,
But
no.
it was just because I was there in person. I remember it. I was like, man, that was one of the most frustrating
Probably
innings
terrible to watch. Yeah, yeah. Look, I've got another one. I mean, look, I've got one recently, which I'm sure everybody has, Azam Khan's, right? I mean, his two balls against Mark Wood in England, which
Oh wow.
really first started that. And not only that, and then he was his wicket keeping. He missed an edge off Mohammad Amir, and well, that was maybe, I wouldn't even, that's, if that was in terms of ease, an 8 on 10. The
Yeah.
Haris Rauf miss, the edge of Rauf was like an 11 on 10 in terms of ease. It was ridiculously easy. In fact, the commentator even said, "Oh, and it's taken, and oh no, it's dropped." Like he just, he was off his, he was on the way
Yeah.
trying to just, talk about a wicket that had just fallen. He could not have imagined, he being the
Yeah.
commentator, that would be dropped. And then it was also those little things where he couldn't stop the ball going away, like he
Yeah.
could dive in time, either down the leg side, which okay can be a bit tough. But I remember on his right, so basically it
Yeah.
was where the ball just like bounced in front of the batter and it just went, and he was just wrong footed, so he couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
And it only went for like one, but it just summed up Pakistan's day. But it just, the bat, and his day even. I know he ended up taking a catch, but still, I don't know, that has to go down as probably the worst performance in 2024 by
Oh yeah.
Pakistan, like an individual performance. I mean, that was absolutely atrocious, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I it was frustrating to watch. Again, it was one of those things where you saw him perform in the PSL, and there was this, Azam Khan clang, getting in there where he's like, his fitness doesn't matter as long as he's hitting the ball and he's performing well. And you see him at international level just not up to it. And obviously, he did get criticized for that, and I'm sure that kind of played into, his recent form has been pretty woeful since then. He played a game and got dropped out of the World Cup. And Moin Khan now has come back and he said, "Oh, he's been unfairly treated, blah blah blah."
I
But I
mean,
mean,
ridiculous. How can you say that? I mean, just remind me. It was Muhammad Amir. I forget who the batter was. It was the first edge that went down. When, like, oh, was it an edge? Was it? Yes, it was. I think it was an inside edge. I can't remember. It may have been outside edge. Oh, actually, no, it was a shorter ball, and I think it was caught, and he didn't catch it. I think it was a short ball.
yeah,
But Haris Rauf, it was the easiest catch in the
yeah,
world. And Moin Khan is a keeper. Should know that. I mean, his son is. Like, I remember against USA when he came, and everybody's like, you know what? Okay, he had a bad day. Let's, new day, new chapter. And he literally missed an absolute straight one from a left arm spinner, first ball.
yeah,
And he was so
yeah.
lazy. And I think he went for the review. I can't remember. It just, look, I feel bad almost talking about this because, because I know the guy's been through a lot on social media. And look, this is not about his weight, just to be very clear. It's about performance. Okay. If you are going to be participating in an international level sport, it is the one field where people have a right to make a comment on your fitness or your physique,
Yeah.
because you are paid to be fit in order to represent your country and play in the field of sport that you are participating in, right? No two
Yeah.
ways about it. You have chosen that, and you are basically, it's like how we are judged for our performance at the workplace. Part of the performance is fitness for him, right? I mean, so you can't play like high international level sport and start saying, oh, people are criticizing me for my physique, when sorry, but people will stop criticizing you if you
Yeah.
score big runs in spite of your physique, like Inzamam. Although people still did it with Inzamam when he was out of form, but when you're not performing and it's clear how unfit you are and you're not doing anything about it, you're going to get the criticism. But anyways, look, let's move away from all these. Let's go a bit back in time. I've got one. Okay,
Go for it.
if you remember England against Pakistan, it was a test match. The whole test series, in fact. Oh, but let's talk about the first game at Lord's, 2006, when Imran Farhat dropped at least 10 catches throughout the test series, of which I want to say 4 or 5, I can't remember. It was him and Karman Akmal who just kept dropping after dropping. Easiest slip catches, caught behind catches were being dropped. And I remember that because I remember this was a month after John T. Rhodes did a fielding coach camp in Pakistan and said Imran Farhat is the best fielder. He is the best in Pakistan. And if you remember, do you remember that Kevin Peterson got dropped, Alistair Cook got dropped, and every time they get dropped, they'd score double hundred. Strauss dropped double hundred, and Marcus just got like 160. Like everybody at least got dropped twice. I still recall, especially of Danish Canaria, but also a few of Sami and all the others. That just stays with me as like, it almost felt fixed, even though it wasn't. It wasn't. But it almost felt, it was like, can you believe it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that series as the series of drops and getting absolutely pasted. Obviously,
And the
the whole series
forfeiture,
had,
don't forget the over forfeiture.
yeah, of course, the forfeiture, the Inzamam hit wicket of Monty Panesar, all of that.
Oh
where
my
he like
God.
jumped over the stumps or something.
Oh, insane.
Yeah, that was a comical series. I'll go for another one, which I'm sure is very close to other Pakistan, very sensitive. It's
I knew
I'll put
say.
no, I'm gonna put a 2-1. I think there are two. One innings which gets forgotten because of the other one. So it's Misbah in 2011.
I knew it. It was Misbah. I knew it.
But I'm gonna add Yunus Khan in the same match. Miss you for everything amazing they've done for Test cricket in Pakistan. But Yunus Khan's 13 of 30 in the same match, I think, was equally bad, or if not worse, because I mean, yeah, you're playing at a stagger of 40, building up the pressure. And then he got out to Yuvraj Singh. He just chipped it to cover, I think it was,
Nicholas
right?
was like, oh, you can be the local hero now, or something like that. And it was appalling. It was, I think, 13 of 33. I can't remember. It was
something like that.
It was absurd.
And the way he got out as well, he was like literally just catching practice to cover.
Yeah. It was a harmless ball. It was a left arm off spin ball. Like, it was quite short. It was a bit of a half tracker, not fully, and he just literally lofted it straight to the fielder. I can't remember who the fielder was. Was it Harper?
Yeah.
I can't remember. But I mean, you're so right, because Pakistan won the ascendancy. We had a really good start. Then we had Asad Shafiq at number 3, who also was doing well. And then when you thought Yunus was in, you felt calm, right? You're like, okay, some statesman with experience. Even though Yunus Khan's one-day career is not reflective of his potential. He just didn't do well in limited overs, especially in one days. But you thought the experience would carry him through. And he just dug Pakistan into a hole. And you're very right. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about it because it just gets lost in the middle. People will talk about how, was it Hafiz or Asad Shafiq who got out trying to Munaf Patel? Was it Hafiz who tried to get a scoop or something, and he got a nick to Dhoni? It was Munaf Patel's military medium. I still remember. And, everyone talks about that. Everyone talks about Shahid Afridi giving it away. Everyone talks about Razak just not hitting, just out of form with the bat. And, of course, Misbah, who just literally was... forgot that it was a limited overs game, clearly. And he thought he'd see out the day. I don't know. But Yunus Khan, I'm so glad you brought it up, because people don't talk about it enough. Like that innings, really dug Pakistan into a hole. If
Yeah.
it wasn't for Umar Akmal's exploits and bad luck that he got a really good ball against Harbhajan, although he was a bit lazy, he didn't come down. It's one of
Yeah.
those cases where a batter makes a mistake that makes a bowler look good. It was a great ball, but
Yeah.
Umar Akmal was seeing the ball well, and if it wasn't for that innings, Pakistan would have been then Yunus Khan's innings would have been even more exposed, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for my picks, you can see a pattern, right? It's very slow batting in a one-day match where it's not. Yeah. So yeah, I think those two. I mean,
Yeah,
fielding. I can't. There's so many, but there are
there's so
more
many.
moments, right? Like and most of them are in Australia. I think you've got obviously Abdullah Shafiq recently, where he had a howler, but there are just so many to pick from.
And there's even Hassan
Uh,
Ali, that big drop 2021 in terms of
oh
significance.
yeah,
Like
oh yeah.
I just don't want to talk about it. For Sunday night, I just don't want to talk about it. But speaking of slow innings, there's one that gets forgotten, and I find it absolutely bizarre that we can just sit here and just talk about it as if it was normal course of business, because it is absolutely shocking. It was in a test match. It was in a game in Melbourne in 2004, Australia against Pakistan, where Pakistan were again in the ascendancy, first innings. Yusuf 100, Yunus 70 odd, and Pakistan were in a good place, right? I think we were at just between 270 and 320 at the time. We ended up being all out for 341, but we were somewhere in the middle here, around, but in a good position when Razak came in at number 6. And what happened over the next 2 hours or 1 hour is, to this day, completely unknown to me. He scored 4 of 74 balls. Can somebody
Wow.
explain to me how, from a position of strength, okay, it's not like you're coming to save an innings or rearguard fourth innings where you just have to see the day out. You're literally coming with the team in a good position, need some good runs, get to 350 or whatever, which they eventually did get to 341, but you could have got even more. It was a flat wicket, and you had the upper hand, you had a set batter at the other end, and you come in and you score 4 of 74. Like,
And Razak. It's not like a tail ender, right?
Abdul Razak, the same, people call him the Razzler Dazzler, the Master Blaster, whatever you want to call him. I mean, I know Sachin is Master Blaster, but you know what I mean? Like, people said he was a man for the death, and he was an excellent hit striker of the ball. But in Test cricket, I found with Razak, he had 2 gears. Either block and just not score at all, right? And he had that weird technique where he didn't have to, or he just smash. There was no in between. But 4 of 74. Just 74 is more than 10 overs. It's more than half a T20 match. You scored 4 runs.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many minutes it was, but I just find that absolutely shocking that it can go untouched. And obviously, when we went on to lose that match, and nobody talked about the 474. People talk about the collapse in the second innings, and also the fact that we couldn't go for the kill when we had Australia 5 down, and then Damian Martin scored 100 with Jason Gillespie for company. But I actually think if Razak had just made use of the 74 balls and taken maybe 10 more singles, or something, or anything else, it just would have got to 370, 380, and Australia would not have got a first innings lead. But anyways, I know it was a bilateral test match, and I still remember and the reason I bring this up was because, remember, Pakistan have always struggled in Australia. Okay.
Yeah.
But when you have innings like those, where clearly the batter has more potential, clearly there is no rhyme or reason. There are no minefield, like the pitch isn't a minefield that justifies 4 of 74 on day 1 at the MCG for boxing. But I found this absolutely bizarre.
Yeah. I think like I said, the pattern is there, right? I mean, in a test match, yes, but day 1 MCG, when you want to make a statement, and it's Razak, it's not like you're not batting with the tail. Yeah. You're not batting with the tail, right? I mean, and the best thing is he remained not out. He didn't even get out in that.
He remained not out. Thank you. Yes, he remained not. So it's not like he got out eventually, but he was seeing wickets fall the other end, and he should have realized when you were 8 down that, you know what, now I'm just going to go and whack it, because no point in me sticking around. Let me get 20, 25 quick runs and see where I get to. He didn't even do that.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for? Christmas? Christmas was
Yeah.
actually a day before. You know what I mean? But yes, I think that was a
Yeah.
funny joke. But yes, maybe not. But anyways, Boxing Day test. Yes. Look, I 4 of 74 unbeaten. Thank you for reminding me. It's just something else.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other individual ones. I mean, they don't. I can't think of any like individual ones. I'm sure I'll be reminded of many. Let us know in the comments if you know any others as well. I mean, I can remember like a combination of, I mean, Pakistan's infamous collapses, but the one that I remember now, and there are a couple of shots I remember. It was a slog sweep by Sarfaraz and one by Hassan Ali in that collapse against New Zealand in, I think it was Abu Dhabi, when they were chasing 175,
Yeah.
and Azhar Ali was like 50 not out, and then they were 130 for three, and then they collapsed. But I remember Sarfaraz getting caught trying to play a slog sweep. Hassan Ali doing the same thing. I think Babar got run out. So yeah, those 3 wickets I remember. I mean, when you're chasing, yeah, I mean, you're 40 runs away, you've got 7 wickets in hand, and then you've got, it's just a more of the dismissal, right? I mean, it's not, and it's not like Bangladesh Day 5 pitch where it's turning square. Yes, it was a spinning pitch, but it wasn't impossible.
Yeah.
And that kind of ended Pakistan's mojo in the UAE, right? And then that was it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was it. In fact, any form of mojo that we had in Test cricket was gone. I think after that, I think then we were just picking up the pieces. Look, and if you think about instances and moments, I can't look past Said Anwar changing the grip on his bat. And the conspiracy theories that followed, we won't get into them, but I think we all know what we are referring to. But that, I still remember, it was as if everything changed. The demons are back. But okay, clearly we have scars, and we go to those scars. But if we think about, look, I think the other one, I mean, I agree with you. Like, you think in collective, the collapses are thought of in collective terms, right? So Ireland, the loss to Ireland, right? That collapse was just unfathomable, right? So it's very tough to blame one player. But I do believe that, it's, we say Shahid Afridi for, he was featured in our greatest test innings discussions. Of course, Afridi needs a mention here, right? Because there are some things that he does that are brilliant, but there's some things that were just like shocking. I still remember when in 2007 in the T20 World Cup final, when he came and he tried to hit his first or second ball for 6 and he got out to Irfan Pathan. I remember that, in fact, I think the bigger one was 2012 when we were in the semi-final against Sri Lanka. And he came in, Pakistan was in a semi-decent position, and he just missed a straighter one. He tried to defend it, worst of all. And there are so many instances of him that's losing the plot. So I think Shahid Afridi, I mean, I'm
2011
sure...
he got out on a full toss, was it? 2011?
Yes, Harbhajan Singh.
Yeah.
Harbhajan Singh, yes. And there you go. And he was a captain then, right? He came, and I know he was number 8. He knew there was no one after him. I mean, if you Umar Gul, but come on. Like, he just needed to bat maybe another 5-7 overs to get his eye in before he launched, right? And everyone forgets Mohali does get due. Okay, everyone, no one talks about it because obviously the game was over, and yes, there wasn't that much due that evening, but there would have been some later, right? You just had to take the game deep, and somehow Shahid Afridi, like, there are so many games I can think of, and I'm a fan of his, but he did lose you games, right? I'm sorry to say, like he did, especially with the bat. The one that comes to mind the most is South Africa-Pakistan series in 2007, when it was 2-2, and we were bossing the fifth inning, the fifth ODI, the chase. I think they were all out. Shoaib Akhtar made a comeback and got 5 wickets, and we were chasing a mediocre total, and we were like on track. And then Afridi came and thought, okay, we're gonna finish this off. It was in Pindi, I think, and he literally just tried to smack the first, second ball, got out, and then the tail just collapsed.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie, as they say. Look, there you have it. Look, let us know in the comments. I'm sure there are many that we've missed. We haven't tried to go down a forensic list. We've tried to keep it lighthearted, the things that strike, or stay front of mind for us.
And not the controversial ones, right? Not the big no balls and all of that, because those are more sinister in nature. Let's
Yeah. Look, we are tragic Pakistan supporters, sort of like a Shakespearean tragedy, where it's always doom and gloom. Some spots of brilliance, but if you think about consistency for Pakistan, the only form of consistency is a simmering frustration that we can achieve so much more had these bloopers or just bizarre occurrences not taken place. So it was supposed to be lighthearted. I'm sure we missed many. Let us know, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.